Welcome everybody. We are back with Kagurabachi Chapter 93. The break week is finally over. It felt like forever for me. I don't know about you guys, but Hokazono came back with a great chapter, and honestly, the first portion of the chapter left off with a cliffhanger that I believe should be illegal because it is insane. He left us just such on the hook with some absolutely peak manga. So I'm just not going to waste any more time, and we're just going to dive right into this one. And the chapter opens up with our four-way stare down that we left off with from the last chapter between Natsuki, Uraha, Hokuto, and Yura. And in this scene, we just have Hokuto just like laughing to himself. He's just having literally a grand old time. He looks like a crazy person. But we already know from the short time we've been with him that he just seeks the thrill of the battle against other strong opponents. So he really is just living it up. You know, he's living his best life right now. So he's just laughing. And this part, I actually busted out laughing myself because then we have Natsuki basically talking to everyone like, hey, I thought sorcery's allowed, right? Because in the last chapter, when Hokuto was doing like his intro discussion talk about who he was and who Yura was, he also, before they began fighting, had stated like sorcery is allowed, like, you know, basically no holds bar here. And Natsuki is actually pissed because he's like, how come I'm the only one who used sorcery? Because in the last chapter, he activated Lightning Menace, and no other character, when you go back and look, did use any sorcery besides him. So he actually feels slighted, or a little bit, he's like jaded from it because I'm assuming with his personality especially, he's interpreting it as a weakness on his part because no one else there has used sorcery except for him. So, and then he goes off on Uraha like, what's your problem? Why aren't you using your sorcery? And Uraha just is like, well, it just slipped my mind. It slipped my mind. I haven't been really fighting these past 18 years. So it just like didn't really click, you know, for me to use it, which is hilarious because it is true. And clearly, I mean, when you're out of touch that long with battle, again, that was what a lot of that last chapter revolved around, was that edge. The edge that comes from constant combat and being in life or death situations. And that's where the difference is made in a fight between masters. And we obviously saw that Uraha at the end of last chapter regained that edge and locked in. But up until that point, apparently he just didn't think to use his sorcery at all, which is just hilarious. I really do enjoy the dynamic between Natsuki and Uraha, because Natsuki views Uraha almost like as a rival that needs to be overcome, and obviously is a bit salty about everything that happened with the enchanted blades. But Uraha, in return, just views Natsuki like as a pal. Like there's no antagonistic nature to what he thinks about Natsuki, but it's not reciprocated. So I just really enjoy their dynamic. And Hokuto goes on to say like, oh, I apologize that, you know, that's on me for making it an option. Like I've, and then he throws in a jab where he's like, well, I just figured you might be scared without your a little electric leak stuff. That's what he calls Natsuki's lightning menace. And this just makes Natsuki tweak, like, what? And Hokuto's like, but, I shouldn't have worried. Your swordplay is actually quite beautiful. And throws out, apparently his signature wink. It's similar to the wink that he gave to, like, the old woman when we first met him at that, like, stand area. And I'm liking Hokuto more and more. He's kind of goofy, but also clearly I just really like his battle hungry nature, but also his, confidence, but charisma. I don't know. He's just got it for me. It's just clicks. And Natsuki's basically like, well, I'll let the electric leak, comment slide. And I think he's saying that because it started with disrespect, but then he got recognition from Hokuto about his swordplay being beautiful. So he's like, I'll let the electric leak stuff slide. So it hurt his pride, and then it ended up regaining his pride with the second comment. So he's just like, it's all right. And this whole time, like, Yura's just standing there like, ow, like he's bleeding, but he just still, still faced, not really showing any emotion, as he basically never does. And they're, it's funny just getting this little reprieve in this life or death fight right here against mortal enemies. But basically Natsuki's like, well, let's put that to the side. You guys can still go to hell. And he's like, right, Uruha? And Uruha's like, yeah, that's right. We continue on, though, and we kind of get an internal perspective. And it is from Uruha. And he first is thinking about Yura. And he's saying how, like, Yura's not so much a master swordsman. It's more so that his athleticism is totally unreal. Like, his swordplay is inconsistent, but he still gets in plenty of blows just due to his physical prowess alone. And that's basically what I was talking about in my last deep dive for chapter 92, and where it was, even though Yura was wielding a sword and he was seemingly keeping up with other swords masters, I didn't classify him as someone who actually concentrated on his sword play. It was more so just his insane physical abilities, which, Uruha restates here and makes a point, which we already knew was the case, considering back at the Rakuzaichi auction, when Chihiro meets Yura for the first time, Yura is able to react to Chihiro using Mei cloaking, which, moving at insane speeds. And he was able to keep up with him nonchalant, no problems, without any sorcery. So that was just his athleticism. And obviously, once Chihiro accessed, the broken Mei's true realm, he was able to get damage off on Yura. But up until that point, Yura was having zero issues with Chihiro. So I'm still, obviously, there's so much I feel like that's being purposely left off the table for Yura at this time. He's still actively contributing, but, I'm just waiting for him to either have a moment where he shows more emotion or uses, his full abilities, whatever those may be. Then he's thinking about, Uruha continues to think about, he shifts his focus from Yura to Hokuto. And He says that they still don't know the true depth of Hokuto's skill with the sword because he is still holding back, which is insane. It's insane. And this is what I was talking about like 2 chapters ago, and where he just seemed to be so calm, still just like playing defense, not really being too much of the aggressor in the battle. And he still wasn't in the last chapter. He was mainly just like counter attacking or dodging or blocking. He still wasn't the one going at it first. And because then even Uraha points out, like, he seems more interested in savoring the duel than actually killing them. And he says it's creepy. And that's the same kind of vibe, even though I really like Hokuto, that's the same thing where it basically causes me to worry, because I'm like, well, why do I still get the feeling that you are not operating at your full power, your full capacity? And it's been confirmed here that he's not. So Hokuto, even though he has taken significant damage, he lost his right arm, which is his dominant sword hand. He's still holding back. He still wants this duel to continue and extend for seemingly his own personal enjoyment and testing of his skills. But then Uraha thinks, but outside of that, the real reason these guys can go pound sand, is that you guys, they truly are the ones that killed Rokuhira and Ibuki Misaka. So he's realizing that there wasn't just a bluff, because fighters that are this skilled are very few and far between, which is so true, because we've seen other competent sorcerers are people who are considered to be powerful sorcerers, like those 2 brothers that were in the beginning invasion of the Kaminaba headquarters. They got this whole backstory about how strong they are, and then Azami just basically one-shots both of them. Azami, it wasn't even close. So that's just like the difference between, the top tier people and even competent, strong sorcerers. So it's obviously he believes that they would be capable of killing those 2 people because they have the skills to back it up. And we have Hokuto start to explain how injuries are good. The pain gives you an adrenaline rush and it sharpens your focus. And he's just laughing. His eyes are wide open. Like I said, he's just absolutely living it up in this moment. And he just keeps talking because he's a bit of a chatterbox, especially when it comes to fighting strong opponents. He's talking about how they're reaching the climax now. Like, he's glad everyone is still going strong. And when the first guy dies, let's take a little break, which is just hilarious because he's still trying to savor it. So whoever dies first, he's like, well, let's just take a little break after that. In the way he says it, he's assuming that it will not be him, because he's saying, we'll take a little break. So he's just assuming it's not going to be him, but he also wants to extend the fight. So they'll take a little break after someone bows out first, so that then they can recoup and then continue to fight from there again. So this is where Yura actually interjects and says that Hokuto might be running his mouth a bit too much. And Hokuto's just like, I'm done. Then we get this awesome panel of the 4 of them all striking their poses. And we have Natsuki with the dual wield. Yura's got his up. Hokuto with his left hand. And then you have Uraha, who's in the position of the White Purity style, But we know he doesn't have the fingers on his left hand, so he discarded the scabbard and he's using like his forearm to brace it, I'm assuming, to get ready to draw. And then this is where we get, without a doubt, the absolute best panel of the chapter. And it is the four of them all going for their strikes in the same moment. I mean, this is just an absolutely beautiful panel. Hokuzono snapped on this one. It is beautifully drawn. Everyone's faces are serious. Even Yura is kind of serious, but he's still straight-faced. But it's just the angles. It almost looks like Uraha is slashing at Yura. Yura is slashing at maybe Natsuki. Hokuto is going for Uraha, and Natsuki is going for potentially Hokuto. So this panel is incredible. I mean, the action panels, I've talked about it before, in Kagurabachi are just top tier, especially when Hokuzono has the time to complete his vision. It just really never disappoints. So this one is probably one of my all-time favorite panels in Kagurabachi so far. Probably in my top 5, I would say for sure. But then this is where I get slightly triggered, is that we get to see kind of like this shimmering after image of the attacks, and then we cut away. So we don't actually get to see the outcome of what happened, which is, I gotta admit, it's like grade A storytelling to kind of keep us dangling on the hook and waiting for the resolution of that amazing panel. So who knows how long it's going to take for us to actually get back to that fight, but I really hope it's not like extended too far. That's just my own personal wish here, but we will have to wait and see. This is where we cut to a different level, level 5 of the underground headquarters at the Kabunabi. We have a wall get broken through, and we have one of the other Hishaku members comes through. It is the bald guy that had the floating like demon animal heads that Kiri and Uraha, that once you attacked them and destroyed them, they actually weighed you down. This, though, he is actually able to transform his entire head. We don't know if he can do like the rest of his body, but as of right now, we've only seen he can transform his head into one of those things as well. And he is just consuming members of the Kamunabi left and right. This is where we cut to the guy who noticed them break through. While he's focusing on the demon dog head guy, the woman sneaks up from behind him. She's actually the member of the Hishaku, I believe. She's the third person that was there at Rokuhira's, Kunishige's assassination. Because I believe it was Hatshaku, because we still don't have his name, this woman, and Hokuto. So now we have all three members, and we are seeing she can actually manipulate ice. So her sorcery is ice related. She is able to just completely freeze this guy with a breath. He's frozen solid. And she just goes, basically starts talking crap about the Kamunabi. And I thought they were supposed to be really tough. Like, but we have, I don't know if we have got his name. It's the guy in the Hishaku who has like the tied up high neck clothing on, and we first saw him with Hirohiko all the way back at the sword bearer assassination arc. I believe we might have had his name, so I apologize. I cannot remember it at the moment. I will look it up afterwards, or feel free to comment down below to let me know if you guys already remember it. That would be also very quick and easy. So I thank you for that. But he just says, well, you two are just that strong. And this is kind of to that point earlier where Uraha talks about Hokuto, what Hokuto said not being a bluff, and that very strong sorcerers are few and far between. And that just reinforces it, what this guy says as well, is the fact that it's not that these Kamunabi members are weak, it's just that truly you guys are just that strong. Because there's clearly there is always that cut above. And it actually starts to create a very wide gap in abilities. And they're just standing there, and the dog, that's what his name, the bald dog demon guy, I believe his name is Bingo, which is funny because then it makes me think of like Bingo was his name-o, like, you know, the farmer and the dog. So maybe that is some sort of inspiration there. I don't know if Hokuzono likes that little kids rhyme song, but she asks Bingo if it was tasty, and her name is Uran or Uran. It's Uran. I would probably say Uran instead of Uran. No, sorry, I'm like thinking about it right now, like, oh, what do I want to say it as? I'll go with Uran. And if you guys, know the proper pronunciation or what you think it should be, again, let me know, because I want to be like making sure that I'm saying these things right. I'm just not obviously a native Japanese speaker. So some of these names I can get, it's pretty easy to mispronunciate. But basically, he's like, you never listen. Like, they're not tasty. I've said it a million times. But he says that he has to eat them or else he can't use his powers. And she's like, yeah, but aren't you overeating again? You'll get sleepy. And he's like, well, these guys are weak, but the elite fighters should show up soon. Like, they'll be tougher, so I got to make sure I fuel up while I can. And then that's when we have a new Kamunabi member, like, basically just appear out of nowhere. And he's like, here they come, like, brace yourself, as he's yawning. Because she's like, well, you're saying that while yawning. Like, I told you you'd get sleepy. And that's where this dude who just showed up, he's like holding up a comb, literally a hair comb. And he's like, it ends here, intruders. And then we have this dude walk around the corner. It's kind of like that old Japanese, I think it's like either sumo or maybe even samurai type of haircut, where it's hair on the side, bald right here, and then like the strip in the middle for the pony kind of thing. But he comes walking around looking like a big shot, and he is like, I'm gonna, let's minimize our losses. I'll go alone. Which, against these two, that's got to be super risky. But hey, maybe this guy has got it like that. I don't know. But he comes and he grabs the comb, and he's like, I'll keep him busy for a few seconds. And when I give the signal, focus your fire and blast them away with them. Blast him away with them. So I guess that means he's assuming, because he wants to minimize the losses, so he's going to try to restrain them alone. And then when he gets them into a proper position, he's willing to sacrifice himself to get all of them taken out at the same time, so that he would technically be the only loss of their group. And he just, goes to do his hair looking sweet, and he tosses his comb back, and his little assistant dude catches it, and they're ready to begin. And then that's when we cut away from that group, and now we're back with Kiri and Hakari. And they're running it down the hallway. Obviously, they're trying to get to where the Magatsumi is to try to store it in the warehouse. And they come around the corner, and boom, they run into Azumi and Ichika. And Ichika's literally riding on Azumi's shoulders. I mean, Ichika is very small, and he is older, but we know that he is most likely quite powerful. He trained both Azumi and Shiba, and both of those guys are monster sorcerers. So this guy has to be as well. And they run into each other, and they're basically just like, hey, perfect timing. Take us to the Shinichi, or the Magatsumi. And Hakari even thinks to himself, like, an adult shoulder ride, like, question mark. So I think it's just awesome. I do actually love this panel. It's what I decided to make the thumbnail off of, was this piggyback ride, or this shoulder ride. Just because I honestly saw it and I was like, I really like that panel. So they're getting on the elevator, and Hakari brings up, like, hey, Mr. Azumi, like, I thought you went up top, basically meaning to the elimination grounds. And Azumi says that they shut down the elimination grounds because there's too much commotion on the inside. So basically, so they don't have to pass through the elimination grounds because they made their way too far inside. So it'd be pointless for him to just stand up there and wait in the elimination grounds when they're already inside wreaking havoc. So they continue to talk about the fact that, like, Hakari is talking about how everyone's fighting so hard to protect him. Azumi is like, well, thank goodness, like, Uraha is alive. Ichika basically comes in as the more veteran, more logic-based perspective, because he's like, hey, we'll mourn Kudo and the others properly after we wrap this up. So that is, at the time, in all of this chaos, that is what the best course of action is, because thinking on the people who have been lost at this point does no good for the current situation, because it is still chaotic and there are still things that need to get done. So Hakari is talking about that, it will settle it once and for all. He'll transport the Shinichi to the warehouse, and the Hishaku's hands will be tied. And Azumi's like, well, if only it were that easy. And Hakari's confused, but Ichika steps in, and he explains, like, Azumi means that we're surrounded, that they've surrounded all of the Hishaku invaders. And yes, they're expert fighters, but at the end of the day, they're just individual sorcerers, so it shouldn't take long to basically contain them, which is a very, very good point. But the real issue is that they themselves can't have, with how good their plans have been in their information network and when they've decided to act on things, he's surmising that they can't have expected to just charge in to the headquarters with such a small number of sorcerers, even if they're exceptionally skilled, and just defeat them. So he's beginning to think that there is something else behind this. And he thinks, for example, the Shinichi, like they put it up for auction at the Rakuzaichi, almost as if they were handing it over to the Kamunabi. And he brings up the point, like, for example, if they would have programmed the Shinichi to be controlled remotely, handing it over would have been like sending a bomb into their midst. But he talks about when they resealed it, they had it inspected, and that was ruled out as an option. So and Hakari is like, okay, so we should still be okay, right? And Ichika makes the point that that's why he's worried. The fact that they should be okay and everything seems like it should be contained, that they have the numbers to contain each of the individual sorcerers of the Hishaku, and the fact that they have the Shinichi and there isn't any sort of, remote control sort of programming on the Shinichi or any seeming tampering on it, that is the fact why he's worried. It's not that everything is going terrible. It's that, well, it seems like everything is under our control, but why would they have decided to play all of their cards and just charge in head like dead on when there's no way that was the only part of their plan, which is definitely true. And obviously the big factor that might be missing for Ichika is the fact that the sword master, the sword saint, seems to be on the move somehow. So, but the chapter ends with Hakari actually getting to the Shinichi, and as it's being sealed, we see him, the little piece of mask forms on his face, and he's about ready to activate his warehouse sorcery ability to seal the Magatsumi in there. And that is where the chapter ends. And it's such an interesting last page for this because it really does feel unsettling. It feels like somehow they actually might want Hakari to store this in the warehouse. I don't know why they would want that, because seemingly he would be the only one that can retrieve it. So I just have a bad feeling, just like Ichika and probably most of you had. Like, I just feel unsettled because there is a bomb that is literally just, I can hear it ticking, and it's just getting ready to blow up in all our good guys' faces right now. And honestly, I'm not ready for it. But this was the end of the chapter. So this was chapter 93. Let me know down below what you guys thought about it. I do want to just take this chance to say thank you if you made it to this point in the video, but also if you had seen my previous Kagurabachi videos. Both of those are my 2 best performing videos on this channel, and I am just extremely grateful if you have watched those and you are here for this one too. That means the absolute world to me. And the Kagurabachi fandom and community online, I feel like, is still growing, and I feel very, very excited that I can be a part of it, and have already been getting a warm welcome from people checking out my videos. So if you are here, I greatly appreciate you. Feel free to subscribe if you would like to, and I will see you guys in the next chapter. So you guys have a great night or day wherever you are, and can't wait to catch you guys in the next one. Peace.